Welcome everyone to the Great Minds, Great Spaces speaker series. My name is Christella Hales. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm so happy that you are all here. As always, to familiar faces in the crowd, I say thank you and welcome back, and thank you for your patience because you've heard this maybe 50 times. And to new faces, I am so excited that you joined us here today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you at future events. The Great Minds, Great Spaces speaker series is dedicated to working towards infusing themes of diversity, equity, and inclusion into our daily conversations and thought processes. Every session we bring a speaker to share their expertise on how DEI influences STEM and vice versa. I'm confident with crowds like this, having the conversations we are about to have, we will learn just how impactful we can be as a community. We'll get started in just a moment, but before we dive in, there are a couple things you should know. One, for those of you who brought two friends to participate in the WPI giveaway opportunity, which is completely, we've given away everything by now, so if you haven't heard of it, it's okay. Find me after the session in the back where I will be handing them out. For those of you who don't know what I am talking about, do not fret. We're going to have another opportunity like this in the future. This event is being recorded, This event is being recorded for those who may not be able to be present but still want to engage and participate. If you have any kind of issue with that, please pull me aside and let me know it won't be an issue. We work with Andy from ATC. He's wonderful. He's up there. You can't see him, but I promise there's a recording. 3, this specific Great Minds, Great Spaces session is in collaboration with the National First Gen Day, which is happening tomorrow, and there's been a lot of initiatives around First Gen on campus, and so it's kind of building with that momentum. But specifically, I want to shout out to Matt Foster, who's been doing a lot of work with First Gen. I see you in the back, I see your face, we all know that. Tomorrow, Friday, November 8th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., in the campus center, right? Yes, Campus Center. There's going to be free giveaways. There's going to be a little photo booth for social media, and there's just going to be a general congregation of first-gen students, faculty, and staff just getting to meet each other, mixing and mingling. It's going to be great. Go there to support, go there to take a picture, go there to have fun, and of course, go there because this is what we care about, right? And next, there's a Food for Thought session on November 21st in Hagland. I think it's at 12. Yeah. Yes, it's at 12. 12 to 120, and that's more specifically faculty focused, where they're going to be giving, right? When I say it's not faculty focused, where there's going to be giving tidbits in the classroom of how to be more inclusive of first-gen students. Yeah. Lastly, we have the Great Minds, Great Spaces sessions during the lunch hour because we understand that everyone is busy. So during the session, if you need to get up for more food or get to your destination, that is completely fine. I support getting more food. That's my motto in life.
Me too.
We just ask that you please be respectful of those around you and do so as quietly as possible. So I also know that people have meetings and there are places to go. We're all busy. So it's fine. Don't feel bad getting up to go. Just be a little bit respectful around you. Sound good? And now, without further ado, I'd like to present our speaker, Cedrick Boursiquot. He's not really that big of a deal. Cedrick Boursiquot, the Black Geek, has returned to WPI to talk about his experiences as a first-gen student in STEM. Cedrick J. Boursiquot is the CEVA Systems Coordinator and Data Analyst at MIT's International Student Office. Prior to his position at MIT, he worked as an Associate IT Director and IT Integration Specialist at Catholic Memorial High School, preceded only by his tenure at St. John's High School, where he was a computer science teacher and audiovisual director. Cedrick is truly passionate about all things technology, especially when it comes to inclusion of first-gen, Black students, and students of color, and just inclusion in general. So, and he's also my brother, but that's not a big deal. So join me in giving Cedrick a WPI welcome or not, I don't really care. Cedrick,
thank you. All right, so maybe I might not use this. Can everyone hear me? Am I loud enough? Can you still hear me in the back? All right, perfect. So first and foremost, I want to thank everyone for inviting me back here to WPI. just like my sister, I am also pro-food. So if you need to get food at any point in time, please get up. Or if you have to go to a meeting, I completely understand. Last time I was here, just as my sister had stated, I was here for the Black Geek. And that was just to touch upon it really quickly, it was just about implicit bias and how that affects students moving through their different walks of life. A quick activity that we did during that presentation was we Googled the word geek, and we saw that as you were Googling these images in the first page, which is mostly the pages that we use, no one goes past the first page of a search, you saw there was a stereotypical image of a geek that I didn't fit into and many other folks didn't fit into. And just thinking about that moving through the STEM field when people encounter you, how that affects the student and their interactions. So that's just a brief snippet of what happened previously. I'm going to build a little bit upon that today, but we'll be looking at it from a different lens. All right. So the first thing before we get started, what I'd like to do is do a quick warm up. And what we're going to do here is we're going to define first generation students. And what I'm going to ask is if everyone can either in groups, by yourselves, or with the neighbor next to you, quickly come up with some definitions, and I'll give you some things to think about. First, are we going to be very strict, black and white, or will we have some gray area in regards to defining a first-gen student? The government versus institutional definitions. How would an institution such as WPI define a first-generation student? And how would the government define a first-generation student? And last but not least, will you take into consideration circumstantial factors? All right. So based upon the student, will some students be included or excluded based upon life circumstances? So we're going to start off with that just to warm up. I'll give you about 2 to 3 minutes to either chat quietly with your neighbor next to you or in a large group. And right after that, we'll jump into another exercise, and then we'll pull this in a little bit later altogether. So we won't talk about it right away. I'll just give you a couple minutes to think about that. Okay? All right. So if we can, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up as we move on to our next activity. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'll tell you an anecdote, or I'll tell you a story of 2 students. All right. And you'll see how this plays into what we just did previously. So you have one student. This student attended Holy Name High School. This student, hold on a second. All right, hopefully this is better. Okay, so this student attended Holy Name High School. This student was from a low socioeconomic status. The student also, they were homeless for a period of time in their life, but they were very involved in their school life, academic life. Not only were they strong academically, but they participated in many extracurriculars. They were pulled aside by their guidance counselor, and their guidance counselor told them that not only were their grades great, but they had overcome many obstacles in their life, and that this was definitely something to write about in their college essays. So the student went ahead and applied to a whole bunch of colleges, got accepted, and I'll tell you a little bit later where they went. All right. The second student, basically identical story. Student went to St. John's High School. This student had a strong academic background, also extracurriculars as well, low socioeconomic status, and was homeless for a period of time. Same exact thing. Guidance counselors approached this student, told the student that after overcoming certain obstacles, as well as having a strong academic background, they would be a good candidate for certain colleges and universities. So the student also applied. All right. The first student got accepted to Colgate. The second student got accepted to Tufts University. And if you're not drawing the parallels just now, this is my sister and I. And we're going to bring in the activity here. So between my sister and I, almost identical. My mother has a master's degree, but she got her master's in Haiti. All right, so she came to America, and when she immigrated to America, she then got her associate's degree here. Between my sister and I, which one of us was considered a first gen? And why?
Who's older?
I'm older. Yeah. So I went first and she followed. Yes, in the back. You said we're both first gen? Why? Perfect. So I don't know if everyone heard her. What she had said is that we would both be considered first gen because our mother did not complete her degree in the United States. She completed her degree outside the United States. Valid point. Anyone else? Yes. Yes. There you go. All right, so they have some college education, so we both would not be considered first gen. All right. Anyone else? Yes.
I don't think you're first generation.
Perfect. Exactly. Okay, so we're not first generation. Now, I'll stop the suspense in just a little bit. What I'm going to do, what I want to do now is let's talk about the factors that you use to define first generation before we move on to this, just to show you like how complicated it's getting, because we already have a couple answers. Some are saying we are first gen because my mother's degree was, she received a degree outside the United States. Some are saying because she has an associate's degree here, we are not considered first gen. And others are saying because her degree was received outside the country, that we are not. So what were some folks' reasoning behind defining first gen outside of this before we get to the answers? Yes. To be an admitted student on campus. Okay. Anyone else? Definitions? We'll go for one more and then we'll reveal the answer.
But receiving the degree. First in the family to receive the degree, not just to get onto campus, but to...
So you're differentiating. So she's saying just step on campus, and you're saying they actually receive the degree.
And complete the degree.
Okay.
Very different.
Perfect. Yes.
Every institution defines it differently. So WPI, we say the first person to receive a bachelor's degree.
There you go. Perfect. All right. Yes. Yes. Exactly. But then if we go a little bit further back, my grandfather was a principal, so that would knock her out as well. But there's a lot more into that. But perfect. This is great. We're starting this conversation. Now, would it surprise you to let you know that I was not considered first gen, but Crystal was? How does that work? Right? So, yes. Absolutely. All right, and that's what we're going to get into these little nuances as we move forward. It's just like, it doesn't make any sense. So the differences. First gen defined at Tufts at the time. So Tufts has since changed. They now have a building for first generation students, but the first generation student building on Tufts campus encompasses first generation students, disadvantaged students, as well as DACA students. So it's not just first generation, but that's the name of the building where the students are. So Tufts has since changed since 2013. But when I was attending Tufts, at that point in time, they went by the legislative definition. And the legislative definition basically says you have to receive your bachelor's degree. So there are some institutions where they'll say, hey, if someone applied and they did one course, you're not considered first gen. Legislatively, you have to receive that degree. So that was Tufts' definition. On the other hand, I'm actually going to read this just because Colgate was much different. So their program at Colgate is called OUS. I really like the program because OUS stands for Office of Undergraduate Support. So first and foremost, you're not calling the students out already. Office of Undergraduate Support, Crystal was an undergraduate, so it makes sense for her to go to that office. She's not being stigmatized by going to the office already. So I thought that was a great name. So OUS is the name, and on their site, it says Colgate's Office of Undergraduate Support/Studies provides educational opportunities and academic support to students who have demonstrated talent, creativity, intellect, and determination in the face of significant challenges, right? So nowhere in there is first gen mentioned, but the students understand what the language means. And it's very inclusive of them. So that was the difference. So as we move on, now we're going to talk about some more definitions. You're going to see it's first gen. There's multiple definitions, but it's still one name. So it's hard to differentiate what they actually mean. Let's go with the most common one. The most common definition that you'll find between high school counselors, right, all the way up to college admissions officers, is that it's a student who neither of their parents have received a bachelor's degree, okay? That's the most prominent one that I found. But what does that leave out? Because we were just talking about it. What other instances does it leave out? I'm sorry? Yep, socioeconomic extremes, yes. Anything else? Yes.
I would say whether your parents, or like whether you're getting your degree in the United States or outside of the United States.
It's different, absolutely. Degree inside and outside the United States, yes. Perfect. There was an example. I love that example. There was an example of a young man who applied to college. His biological father had a bachelor's degree, received his bachelor's degree. He grew up with his mom, never knew his father. And when he went to apply, they rejected him because his father had a bachelor's degree. So he was not considered first gen by the institution because they say that his father received the degree, even though his father had no influence on how he was brought up. Right? So it's really, that's an issue there. What else? What about online education? There you go. Part-time versus full-time on campus.
My dad went to night school on the GI Bill, so no understanding of on-campus life or the college admissions process.
There you go. All right. Anything else? Huh? Guardians. Exactly. You know, once again, so as you'll see in the state, so they changed it legislatively, but before it used to say biological parents. Now it says you have biological parents or guardians, which is great because that young man who was denied would have actually been approved. All right. So these are the most common ones. We're now going to talk about the Higher Education Act of 1965, which also defines it. So I'm pulling directly from the site. The reason that the Higher Education Act of 1965 was passed was to strengthen the educational resources of our colleges and universities and to provide financial assistance for students in post-secondary and higher education. Now, the two definitions that they have for first gen within that document, within that, you're going to have an individual, both of whose parents did not complete a baccalaureate degree. So once again, it's completion. I know some institutions do have it different. If you signed up for a course and got accepted, you're no longer first gen, right? Or in the case of an individual who regularly resided with and received support from only one parent, an individual whose only such parent did not complete a baccalaureate degree. So the language goes on to say just basically, whoever raised the child, if they had a baccalaureate degree, they're not considered first gen. But if they did not receive a baccalaureate degree, they are considered first gen. So I know someone had mentioned associate's degree. There are some institutions that consider an associate's degree. They would consider if your parent or guardian had an associate's degree, you would not be considered first gen. But here, as we see under the legislation, if your parent had an associate's degree, you would still be considered first gen. So the Department of Education has 3 definitions for first gen, okay? So the first one is one that we just reviewed, the legislative definition, and there's 2 other definitions that they use, and both of these definitions are used strictly for research purposes, but people do utilize them. So the first one is no education after high school would be considered first gen, or no degree after high school. Now, when I first read that, I thought they were one and the same thing. So we're going to stop here for a second. Can someone help me parse this out? Exactly, right? So, I'm sorry, go ahead. Absolutely. There you go. Perfect. So that's exactly what it is. So the Department of Education is saying if there's no education after high school, they would consider certain folks first gen, or if there's no degree after high school. Even if you took classes, there's no degree, you'd be considered first gen. So as you can see, you're going to have what we think of as mainstream definitions. You're going to have the legislative definitions. You're going to have the Department of Education definitions. And then as we move further on, we're going to see 8 other different definitions from a study. All right. So you're going to see a whole lot as we continue to get in, and you can quickly see that we're going down a wormhole. Yes.
Why are they only using those 2 for research?
That I'm unsure. That's a great question. I'm unsure of
I
why.
didn't know if they were hoping to expand it eventually, or.
I don't know. I'm sorry. That is a good question, though. I'll be looking that one up. I'm not sure why it's only those 2. But I believe the research I'll be talking about by Robert, that may shed a little bit of light on that. So NASPA, okay, so this is just a quote I pulled from their site. I thought it was very informative. So the term first generation may seem to be the newest buzzword in higher education, yet it has been actively used for decades. So the Higher Education Act was passed in 1965. Around 1980 is when first gen officially started coming out. Like people started using the word first gen. All right, and we'll talk a little bit about that, why that term was used. So actively used for decades. However, shifting populations entering higher education, continual increases in first generation college student enrollment, debate surrounding rising tuition and costs, and genuine desires for a rise in graduation rates and a better prepared workforce has positioned the experiences of first generation college students as a renewed focus across post-secondary education. So when I was doing some research for this, I started looking at some sites. Now, I don't remember it being such a big thing in 2013, but then again, I don't think I was actively looking for it. But I've been to MIT's site, Colgate's site, Tufts University, list goes on, and they always have a first gen program somewhere. So it's really they're making themselves seen right away. So the question becomes, what are the ramifications of these varying definitions? And this is what we're going to talk about the study. So the study by Robert K. Tukshian, right? 8 different definitions, and we're going to talk about how he utilized this, and him and his research group. So the factors that they included to get these different definitions is whether, and we talked about this already, whether or not they earned a college degree. Now, even within the degree, there are some nuances. Is an associate's degree considered a college degree, or is it a bachelor's degree? So factors used, degree earned, pursued college degree, even one course. So I know someone had mentioned that if you got accepted for one course, you might not be considered first gen. So they use that as well. Degree type, biological parents versus legal guardians. So those were some of the factors that they came up with 8 different definitions. So they mixed and matched those to get 8 different definitions of a first gen student. Their sample size was roughly 7,300 10th graders. What do you think the results were? So I haven't given you much, so what do you think the results were in the research? What do you think they found? Of 7,300 10th graders using 8 different definitions to mark them as first gen, what do you think the disparity was? So doubles the number as...
People that would be accepted as first gen.
Okay, with certain definitions, you double the number.
If you're the more inclusive, if you include everybody,
Yes.
it would be double than if you just include one of the smallest group.
There you go. Okay, so you're going to get a larger number. I saw a hand in the back. Okay, so you say about half of them are first generation. Okay. Anyone else? So would it surprise you to know that there was a 55% difference when using the different definitions? So it's between 22% and 77%. All right? So clearly, as we use the more stricter definitions, we'll have less students fall into that. So if that's 7,300, only 22 would classify as a first gen. But the broader we are, as you had mentioned, the broader we are, the more students we include. So then that causes a problem. What do you see as a potential issue there? By including less or more? Either way. Yes?
There's potentially students who are being left out and not receiving support services that they may need.
Absolutely.
Swing it too far the other way, then it becomes a numbers issue. How much money does it take to then provide everybody with support services? And then with it having too many people in that institution, the needs are so vastly different.
Absolutely.
It's impossible to offer help for everybody.
Exactly. I agree. So there was one article that I read that was very interesting. So they had a student drive up in a Porsche that was first gen. And people were surprised. So before I reveal what went on from there, are folks surprised? Why or why not? First gen student in a Porsche. Exactly. And so I think going back to what someone had said in the back, oftentimes folks just look at first gen and they're thinking immediately low socioeconomic status. That is not always the case. All right. Once again, as with everything, it spans a gauntlet, and you will have students who may be better off but never had the experience or someone to help them get there. Now, with their money, there may be more resources that are available to them, but that still doesn't take away from the fact that they're a first generation student. Right? So one theory behind this, and this is going back to 1980 when the word first appeared, first gen, right? So one theory behind why there's such a large gap is because the word, originally they thought first gen would come out to encompass low income and underprivileged students. So they use that word rather than using race, ethnicity, and let's say low income, for instance. So that's why we've changed the socioeconomic status as opposed to low income, right? So it's a broader sphere. And by doing this first gen, they felt like they were ruffling less feathers because you weren't using race as race and ethnicity and whatnot. So that's one of the reasons that they think there's such a big gap, right? But you want to encompass everyone. So let's go back to Colgate with OUS. You want to give the students a space where they can come and they know that they have support services without directly calling them out. There's nothing wrong with calling them out, but sometimes you'll have students, and so at MIT we have the office, so it's called OME, Office of Minority Education, right? When a student walks in there, everyone already knows exactly why they're walking in there. And we've gotten, feedback from the students that they want to walk in and not be singled out. They want to be able to walk into space, ask for services, whatever the service is, and not let all their other friends know, oh, this is why they dropped by the office, right? So first gen was originally created, or at least the theory speculates, was originally created to give that kind of cloud, essentially, to allow students, if you are truly first gen, or maybe you are underprivileged, okay, or lower income, low socioeconomic status, whatever the reason may be, the circumstances in your life dictated that first gen would help you get the services you need without having that stigma. Also, there's a second reason that they think it's a little high. So right now, and I'll get to the next number right after this. So first gen is a big number for universities and institutions, just because they pride themselves in giving students or giving them the tools for social mobility. And that's the product higher education or institutions provide, essentially. Is you're saying you can come here, you get a better education, hopefully that translates into a higher paying job, and hopefully that higher paying job gets you out of where you started, right? So, and as I was saying before, you have these different websites where Tufts University, MIT, Colgate, WPI, you'll find these sections designated for the first gen or first year experience, is what we're calling it down at MIT, right? So the next number is going to be 60%. Does anyone want to take a guess at what that is? So I'm going to give you a clue. It's related to admissions. Sorry? 60% retention rate or graduate. That's a great guess. I like that. Anyone else? So this isn't a hard number. This survey was conducted by Inside Higher Education. And so this was the number of admissions directors that said that they looked at first gen, right? So all encompassing first gen, whether it be low socioeconomic status, underprivileged, minority, marginalized groups, whatever it is, that they would look at that on top of grades and it might mitigate, let's say, a poor SAT score. 60%. Because what the article went in to say that many of these college admissions officers, and one of them was from Harvard speaking out, Harvard says that there's 50 different things that they utilize before they accept a student. And first gen is one, and it's not going to be the top one. So across the board, 60% of institutions would use first gen as a marker for students. Now, this is great, but it also causes a problem, right? I love the fact that we're accepting students, but when they get on campus, do they have the support system they need to succeed, right? So it's great to get them on campus, but if they're going to be on campus for one semester and leave, what's the point of inviting them? And so sometimes we need to think about the challenges that they face, particularly regarding to their circumstances. I'll give you some quick numbers. Oh, I think it just got chopped off a little bit. I believe it was okay, no, sorry, never mind. So the first generation students are 4 times more likely to drop out of college before graduating. It's one fact right there. In West Virginia, 49% of college students are first gen, and across the United States, roughly 1/3 of our population is first gen. Okay, so this is scary because if you're telling me that 1/3 of the population is first gen and our institutions don't have the programs in place to help them, we're setting up 1/3 of our students for failure right off the bat. Now, how can we mitigate this? What can we do as institutions, as advisors, counselors, to help mitigate this? Yes. Absolutely.
It may be a foreign language to them, some of the terms and some of the requirements and some of the expectations that faculty members have.
Absolutely. I agree.
Recognize signs of behavior exhibited that might mean there's something outside their control that's going to affect their performance.
Absolutely. Yes. Perfect. Let's talk about a couple of them. The hurdles that some students may face. I know this one I face personally, right? How much does that cost? Before you told me anything, oh, you got to buy books? How much does that cost? Can I copy it? Can I download it? What can I do to mitigate this cost? How much does it cost? Point blank period. I know I've seen one of the things that I wasn't able to participate in is the dinners with professors. You know, it's $50. Maybe $50 isn't too much to me now. I mean, it's still a good amount of money, but it's not too much to me now. But then, oh my goodness, $50? No, absolutely not. Because at that point in time, I worked, so a little bit about my life at that point in time, I was a waiter. So I biked myself 9 miles to work and 9 miles back. And then on top of that, I had homework. So you're telling me $50, that might be half a night's work. So I'm wasting half a night to have dinner with the professor where students are just doing it, right? So cost is a big thing. Recently at MIT, we had an article that came out and there was a graduate student who was struggling with some certain things. And it was crazy about the simple things. So at MIT, we have a monthly student activities charge. And the student was complaining about it, which is legitimate because the student's like, I'm working very hard to get this education, but there are other circumstances outside of my control that are hurting me, and this $50 for student activities that I don't participate in or partake in is even worse, right? So sometimes it's cost. And on top of this, sometimes they're supporting families. There's a couple of my friends I knew at Tufts that were making money and sending it home. So not only were they studying, but then they were sending money home. Now, how much bandwidth do you think that student has? Studying, working, and worrying about a family. They may not even have so I know for some students, based on the degree that they were pursuing, some families didn't support them. So I think so there's one thing. Being first is enough pressure as it is. Then to be first and to succeed is a whole nother level. Then to be first and to succeed, but not have the backing of your family, that's a whole nother beast. So when I graduated Tufts, it was $59,000 a year. I recently checked those numbers. Right now, Tufts is at $72,000 to $75,000 a year. I couldn't even imagine that. I mean, when I got accepted to Tufts and they told me I had almost a full scholarship, I was like, okay, I'm going, because otherwise, if they had told me I owed anything, I wouldn't have gone. And my sister was a trooper. She went regardless. But I said, if I don't get money, I'm not going. And that was the determining factor for me. And with the cost continuing to rise, it's difficult. However, Duke, I don't know if anyone's heard of the Duke's program right now. Duke has a program specifically for first gen, broad term. They'll take 240 students each year, and they'll have a full 4 years, everything paid. They'll get a laptop, activities fees paid. There's not a dime that the student pays. Duke is going so far as to pay for their travel back home so that they can continue to see their family. So 240 students a year, Duke University right now is paying to come on campus. We're going to support you. We'll make sure you can see your family, no fees. You don't have to worry about anything. I'm not saying every institution needs to do that, but that's a large step to say, hey, we want you here no matter what your walk of life is, and we're here to support you. And as we were talking about before, many have work obligations, family, and community obligations. So there's a lot on their minds. I know we're a little short on time, so I'm going to try to move a little quicker. Biggest thing for me was help applying. And I thank God I was at St. John's High School. Because if I was anywhere else, I don't think I would have gone to college. I had a counselor that was constantly on me to say, Cedrick, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to apply this time. Here's what you need to do for the Common App. I didn't understand any of the lingo, as we were talking about before. Common App, what do you mean Common App, right? But then there's a Common App, but then there's some colleges that don't take the Common App. So then you have to do a whole nother application for that university or institute. It's confusing. And then on top of that, it's $75 to apply. Okay, that's not worth, to me at that point, it's like, no. Because I wanted to apply to 10 colleges, that's $750. Not happening. But, so there are certain things that will push students away. Course management, that was a really big thing for me. I did not explore at all. I was the student that got my degree. I was not happy with my degree. I just wanted to get my degree and get out of college, right? Right now, my younger brother, he's at Utah State University. The first thing I told him, I was like, do not take any requirements. Take all courses that you would not take. Because you want to find something that you love and you're passionate about before committing to it. You're your freshman year, you have the whole semester to make up the whole year actually, whole 2 semesters to make up your mind. That was my mistake. I went right into it. I said I'm going to do it. Sophomore year, I'm like, I don't like it, but I'm already this far. I got to finish it. So, course management also, freshman year, I took 6 courses and was working jobs because I thought I could do it. Definitely got a reality check. By the time the semester ended, I was 3 courses and a job. So, there's some reality. Some students can handle it, but some students can't. I had no idea. And my mom couldn't tell me either because she went to school in Haiti. It was a completely different system. There was no SAT, so my mom didn't know how to prep for those. And then I know some of my friends had the issue of leaving their family behind. Because some students come from a place, and at one point in time, my sister and I had this, where we didn't have heat in our house. So coming to the university where you have the amenity of heat and knowing that your family's back home, especially during the winter and they're cold, that's tough. That was my first year at Tufts. That was right before Crystal graduated. It's difficult to be like, oh wow, you know, I'm here and I'm learning and I have the benefit of heat. I have the benefit of 3 meals or 4, depending on what I want, because freshmen have unlimited meals. But my mom and sister are home, freezing, and I don't know when the next meal is gonna come. May have pressure to succeed. We talked about that. My background is Caribbean. All right, so I'm from Haiti. I'm gonna tell you, there are only 2 legitimate Caribbean careers you can pursue that are accepted, right? Lawyer or doctor. If you don't fall under any of those, don't come back home, right? My mom was a little bit more lenient. She supported me regardless, but it was difficult because I originally went to Tufts under pre-med. I was there to be a pre-med. I went to be an anesthesiologist. I did some rounds at UMass, and I found out that's not for me. My mom was accepting, but you want to know how many family members came up to me and told me, you're wasting your time? You're not going to be an anesthesiologist? Why did you go to Tufts? Are you not smart enough to finish the degree? It's tough. Communication, I didn't do it. Everything was to myself. You can't call home and say, hey, Mom, I know I got a scholarship, but we're spending X amount of money a year for you to put me in school. I don't think I'm doing well. I'm struggling. I'm failing. I'm not going to call home with that burden. You take that to yourself. How do you communicate that? Where's the space to reach out? The people I did speak to were a couple other first gen, and we throw our burdens on each other, but that was about it. And the future. Remember when I was graduating, they say, you're lucky to find a job. So, there are many things that first-gen students are thinking about. And once again, this is not just, if we're going back to the definition, it's not just a first-generation student who their parents had a degree. We're talking about socioeconomic status, life circumstances. There are many things that are going to hinder a student, and it's going to ultimately hinder their capacity to perform well. And dealing with emotions, also imposter syndrome, that's something I definitely felt. Why did Tufts accept me? Some people say, oh, you were the diversity hire, whatnot, or you were accepted because of diversity. I always had to prove that I deserve to be here. Yes, maybe there are some life circumstances that gave me an edge, but I can do the work too. Now, you think students leaving, you have all that going on, and the student does graduate, they should be in the purple. But because they've been dealing with so much, they think they're the orange. They're the outlier. They don't deserve the job. They're not qualified for these positions. And so they don't apply. So now we see that we're getting our first-gen students in. We need to make sure we support them and let them know that they can do the work, right? Because if they don't, they graduate, and when they graduate, they still don't think they're capable of completing things. So what can we do differently, right? One thing I know for me that I did a lot was speak to my counselor at one point in time. Her name was Carol Baffy-Dugan. She was my pre-med advisor, and I thank God for her because even when I dropped pre-med, she continued to advise me and tell me where to go. She never made me feel like less than because I dropped med. She said, come back to me, we can discuss what's going on. And every time I made a decision, I went back to her, and like I said, I'm not a doctor now, but she was there for me. And that was large. That was huge, huge. Because if she had dropped me, I don't know who I would have as my advisor. My next advisor was great, but I only got her because Carol Baffy-Dugan referred me to her. Listen, I know sometimes it's hard, right? It is difficult with the hustle and bustle that we have to have a student come in, drop stuff on you, and for you to listen. But sometimes that's all they need, a listening ear. Actively listening, too, and not just hearing, in one ear, out the other. Actually listening to what they're saying and trying to give them some feedback if it warrants that. So, and then put on your empathy hat. If it were you or if it was your family member, how would you want someone to help them out or guide them? And the last thing I want to say is one thing that we like to do a lot at MIT, and I'm sure we do it here too, is just you want to try to get the students out of the classroom. Try to do activities where they can meet others, right, and connect with others. I think one thing that was very telling, one of the articles I was reading, there was a Taiwanese student who she had to give herself permission to go out and hang out with friends because all her parents cared about were her grades. Her parents said, if you're not improving your grades, then why are you doing it? That's tough. But she, yes. I think that's great. Yeah, if they show up, to get the family there, yeah. To get the family there and to give them information is great. To allow the parents to know that, hey, you know, they may flunk. You know, student that got a straight A, when I got my first F at Tufts, oh my goodness, I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. It was tough. And then to move on from that, right? And I think it's great having that conversation. One thing that I do love that MIT does is for the first year as freshmen, so they want you to explore, so they actually encourage it. And then on top of that, if you fail, they write it off. So you get a course where you're allowed to fail. So it really encourages students to go out there, not to fail, but it encourages them to go out there to try new things. But sometimes also failure is part of success, right? And so I think we have such a rigid definition of success. If I don't have straight A's, if I don't have a 3.5 GPA, 3.7, 3.8, 4, or 4 plus, whatever it is, I'm not successful. Well, maybe you need that failure to get where you need to go. Or maybe that failure is what's going to wake you up to see, hey, this is not for me.
I would say that's probably one of the biggest challenges, are like the hidden costs, right? Students who come from particular kinds of backgrounds are going to be much, much more risk averse.
Absolutely.
And that follows them through their lifetime.
Absolutely.
That constant thought pattern of being in survival mode, it follows you around. So this idea of social capital and not feeling like an outlier, like if we can get at students while they're in their 20s, you know,
yes.
it changes patterns, because even, like, my parents didn't graduate from high school, and I wasn't able to graduate from college, and my kids will be first generation. And I see some of those patterns that I inadvertently carry forward, not realizing it until you put them up on the screen, and I'm like, oh yeah, because like you don't waste anything. You don't, like, whether it's time or it's money or
Absolutely.
You know, everything counts. And so I think it's all really important, but catching those patterns, shining a light on them so that people can dismantle them, I think will be really important.
I agree. I think going back to the point before, if we can get families involved, that's a great first step. I mean, I'm thinking about Parents' Weekend. I know it's supposed to be a fun weekend, but maybe you might have small workshops. I know my mom came to Parents' Weekend. She was there for the whole weekend. My sister slept over too, right? It was great to be like, oh, come to Tufts and let's look at it. All the crews were performing. But then if you had a little session here or there for parents to kind of understand, that might help. That way they're there for fun, but they can also learn. Or worst case, maybe a pamphlet or whatnot. But yeah, no, great point. So I know we're running, so I have a couple more things. I'm just trying to get through this really quickly. Sorry. Please, if you have any questions, you can stop me at any time. Really quickly, one of the things I found very beneficial, specifically highlighting HR, financial aid, student counseling, is sometimes having representatives from these offices come to student events. Sometimes maybe even unannounced. Right? It's a student event, have them come and say, hey, listen, we're playing board games or we're having a movie night, but 5 minutes before we start, here is Sally. She's from HR and she's going to tell you what they can do for you. Finance, right? And just quickly give them a tidbit and then hand out cards and walk out. Because then that gives the student, you have now told the student what resources are available to them, especially when they're free, right? There's some resources I never took advantage of that I know Crystal took advantage of. And it literally is because Crystal went to college that I learned about things my senior year at Tufts that I could take advantage of. But I wasn't looking for them. Right? So I didn't have, as we spoke about before, I didn't have that first year experience. I didn't have a 5-week course that allowed me to have 2 college credits before entering and making sure I was prepped, which is what Colgate does at OUS, the Summer Institute. You get 5 weeks beforehand, you get 2 credits, and they count towards your degree, and they're ensuring that you're ready for it, right? I know Holy Cross is the same thing with the passport program, I believe it's called. I don't know if they've changed it, but Holy Cross does a passport program as well. So these are initiatives that are saying, hey, we want you here, and we're gonna make sure that you succeed. Come beforehand so you get to understand the layout of the campus, you understand what it is to live on your own, do homework on your own and all that before the real hustle and bustle starts. Okay? So why it's important, I'm pretty sure many of you have already seen this before. There's equality, everyone gets the same thing, and there's equity, where everyone gets what they need, right? Because sometimes you don't need everything. Sometimes you're okay. But we want to be at a place where we can help each student individually based on their needs. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to do this last quick video of a student. This will be the end, and we'll have questions right after. So this student comes into your office, and she says these things. I want to see how we respond to this. Okay?
When you call a junior in college who only has 3 semesters left before they have to graduate and then get a real job in the real world and start being an actual adult that like pays bills and pays taxes and they're starting to realize that they don't really like the thing that they're majoring in because they're not that passionate about it and they can't really picture themselves doing it for the rest of their life, and they're also just not really that great at the thing they're majoring in either, and it's too late for them to change their major because you've already invested so much time and money and effort into that degree, and also even if you were to change your major, it's like you don't even know you would change it to because your biggest insecurity is that you're not really passionate about anything, and all your friends and everyone in your life seems to have everything figured out and all put together, and everyone else seems to know what they're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. You're just kind of really stressed and you're in this weird pithole, and it's like you just want to sleep off the next 3 years or just like fast forward to a bit in your life where you like have everything figured out and you're happy and put together, but you can't do that, so you're just
So what can we see from her? First of all, she was talking very fast. But what were we picking up from her? If you were actually listening to her, what was she conveying to you with all this? Yes. Exactly. She so? She's panicking. Yeah, anxiety, panicking. What else? Overwhelmed, right? So really quick, I want to do this, and then we'll end. I'll have a couple things, right? So think of this as your brain, all right? She gave us a couple things. Let's talk about it. She's thinking about her degree. She may want to change it. That's going to take up this much space, right? She's also thinking that she may have made a mistake in her degree and she wants to change it, but it's a waste of money. So she's thinking about money and family issues. That's going to take up this much space, right? Of her total cognitive abilities for the moment, right? You add on any other college issues that she has, it fills it up. Now, how do you expect her to perform in class? What space does she have left to utilize, to go to a lecture and actually pick up on what she's learning or what you're delivering, right? So with these students, there's so much going on, it's difficult to even focus. I remember one time in bio class, this was one of my exams. Thank God the professor was very understanding, but there was a lot of stuff going on with my family at this point in time. And so I had just been laid off from one of my jobs. And so it was tough there. And then I had some other family issues going on. And I went in for a bio exam. I couldn't focus. I was reading questions like, okay, this is B, this is D. But there was nothing I'm looking back at it now, but then I was just like, Cedrick, you got to get your stuff together. Like, figure it out. You studied this. But I couldn't remember any of it. Right? And I spoke to the professor after and explained my situation. They gave me a completely different test, and I was able to take it at a later date. But the only reason I did that is because I spoke to one of my other friends who had said, hey, they'd been in a similar situation, and spoke to the professor. And I was able to prove it. Yes, my job laid me off. I had the paperwork for it. My family issues, I was able to prove that. I wasn't just making this up to retake the exam. Right? And so that was great. I had that support to say, hey, we understand that life happens. You need a pause button right now. Hit pause. Come back, and when you're ready, press play. We can move from there. So, I mean, we just basically did this. Last couple things, moving forward, and I'll take questions if we have any. So every institution has their own fingerprint, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion work is different across the board. And every institution, just like a fingerprint, is going to be unique because they have different ways of going about it. So within your diversity, equity, and inclusion work, we need to include the first generation students and how we reach them and support them. One thing I did notice, because I also am the chair of diversity, equity, and inclusion for the OVC department at MIT, recently I had asked for money. And I think we all know whenever it comes to asking for money, red tape appears everywhere, right? But we also know that whenever the institution backs something financially, they're serious about it. So the question becomes, how serious are you about helping first-gen students if the financial backing isn't there, right? Because do institutions peel back on funds for asking alumni to donate, right? Do they peel back on funds for some institutions, sports, research? No, because these are things that are important to them. So how important is making sure that your first-gen students succeed? That's where the financial stuff comes in. And I mean, something as little as, let's say you have 5 departments, each department puts $1,000 aside, right? That's $5,000. It's not a lot of money, but you can help out quite a few students. That's extra books, maybe a toothbrush, some soap, maybe a bus ticket back home. Just having some money to help the students out. Any questions? Well, I want to thank you folks very much for being a very pleasant crowd. I'm sorry that I pushed you to 125, my fault. But once again, thank you so very much, and thanks for having me again.